The biggest lie you've been told is that you need to work hard to be happy. This toxic myth has created a society of exhausted seekers, always striving, always reaching, always pushing towards some imaginary future moment when everything will finally be enough. The self-improvement industry has convinced you that you're broken and need fixing, that you're incomplete and need completing, that you're lost and need finding. But what if all this seeking is actually the source of your suffering? What if your endless quest for happiness is precisely what's making you unhappy? Have you ever noticed how the harder you chase something, the faster it seems to run away? The tight fist that desperately tries to hold onto sand only watches as every grain slips through its fingers. Yet the open palm, relaxed and at peace, can hold that same sand effortlessly. That's exactly what we do with happiness. We chase it like a shadow. The faster we run, the faster it eludes us. And in that endless pursuit, we miss something profound. Happiness isn't a destination to reach. It's the ground we're already standing on. You're sitting here right now, perhaps wondering if this will be just another talk about positive thinking or manifesting your dreams. It's not. This is about understanding a fundamental truth that has evaded humanity since we first began our quest for fulfillment. The very act of searching for happiness is what keeps us from experiencing it. Look at your own life for a moment. Think about the times when you were truly, genuinely happy. Not the happiness that comes from achievement or acquisition. I'm talking about those moments of pure, unfiltered joy. Maybe it was during a laugh shared with a friend, or while watching a sunset without trying to capture it on your phone, or in the simple act of helping someone without expecting anything in return. What do all these moments have in common? You weren't trying to be happy. You weren't thinking about being happy. You were simply being, but we've been conditioned differently, haven't we? From our earliest days, we've been taught that happiness is something to pursue. Get good grades, land the right job, find the perfect partner, buy the dream house, achieve the ideal body weight, then you'll be happy. It's always in, always there, always after something else happens. And so we keep running, exhausting ourselves on this perpetual treadmill of pursuit. We've turned happiness into a commodity, something to be purchased, achieved, or won. We've created a marketplace of happiness where peace of mind comes with a price tag and fulfillment has a 5-step program. The truth, this endless pursuit is like trying to grab hold of the air. The harder you grasp, the more it slips away. Every time we achieve one goal, there's another mountain to climb, another milestone to reach. The goalposts of happiness keep moving, and we keep chasing, wondering why we never quite catch up. But what if I told you that this entire approach is backward? What if the very thing keeping you from experiencing lasting happiness is your relentless pursuit of it? Think about a cat chasing its own tail. Round and round it goes, completely unaware that what it's chasing is already a part of itself. We're doing the same thing with happiness. We're looking everywhere for something that's already within us, already a part of our natural. Consider a child at play. They're not trying to be happy, they simply are. They're fully immersed in the present moment, not worried about whether they're experiencing enough joy or if they're making the most of their playtime. They're not documenting their happiness for social media or comparing their joy to others. They're just being. This is where we need to pause and really examine our own behaviors. How much of your life is spent in pursuit of happiness rather than in recognition of it? How often do you put conditions on your joy? I'll be happy when has become the mantra of our times, and it's time we questioned this approach. The most profound shift happens when we realize that happiness isn't something to be pursued, but rather something to be noticed. It's already here, woven into the fabric of our everyday experiences. It's in the warmth of your morning coffee, in the smile of a stranger, in the sound of rain on your window, in the satisfaction of a job well done. Not because it will lead to something else, but simply because it is what it is. But we miss these moments because we're too busy looking ahead, planning our next move in the great happiness hunt. We've become so focused on the extraordinary that we've become blind to the extraordinary nature of the ordinary. Let me share something with you that might seem counterintuitive at first. The moments when you feel most dissatisfied, most restless, most convinced that happiness is elsewhere. These are actually your greatest teachers. They're not signs that you need to search harder for happiness. They're signs that you need to stop searching altogether. These feelings of dissatisfaction are like arrows pointing to a profound truth, that the very belief that happiness is somewhere else is what creates our unhappiness. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. When we believe happiness is elsewhere, we create a gap between where we are and where we think we need to be. And in that gap lives all our suffering. Think about the last time you achieved something you thought would make you happy. Maybe it was a promotion, a relationship, a purchase, or reaching a personal goal. How long did that happiness last? A day? A week? A month? And then what happened? The initial joy faded and you started looking for the next thing that would make you happy. This isn't because you're doing something wrong or because you're somehow broken. It's because you're following a flawed formula. You're looking for permanent satisfaction and temporary experiences. You're trying to fill an internal space with external solutions. The real transformation begins when we stop treating happiness as a destination and start recognizing it as our natural state. A state that becomes visible, not when we achieve more, but when we remove the obstacles that prevent us from seeing. These obstacles aren't external circumstances. They're our own beliefs, expectations, and constant reaching for something more. They're the stories we tell ourselves about what we need to be happy, the conditions we place on our joy, and the endless comparisons we make between our lives and the lives we think we should be living. What would happen if just for today, you stopped searching for happiness? What if, instead of looking for it, you simply allowed yourself to notice it in the moments it's already present in your life? What if you dropped the story that happiness is somewhere else, waiting for you to find it? This isn't about passive acceptance or giving up on your goals. It's about understanding that your goals and achievements can add color and texture to your life, but they're not the source of your happiness. The source is already within you, covered up by layers of seeking, striving, and believing that joy is somewhere other than here. When you truly understand this, everything changes. The pressure lifts. The constant striving ceases. The endless comparison with others falls away. You begin to see that happiness isn't a reward for getting things right. It's what emerges naturally when you stop getting in your own way. This is where true freedom lies. Not in accumulating more, achieving more, or becoming more, but in recognizing that you are already complete. The happiness you seek isn't waiting for you in some future moment. It's here now in this very breath, in this very awareness, in this very life you're living. But this understanding can't be just intellectual. It has to sink deep into your bones. It has to become not just something you know, but something you live. And that's what we're going to explore together. How to make this shift from seeking to seeing, from pursuing to perceiving, from chasing happiness to allowing it to reveal itself. The journey we're about to embark on isn't about adding something to your life. It's about removing the obstacles that prevent you from seeing what's already there. It's about questioning the very foundations of how we've been taught to pursue happiness and discovering a more authentic, sustainable way of living. Are you ready to stop chasing and start being? Are you willing to question everything you've been taught about happiness? Are you prepared to discover that what you've been searching for has been with you all along? Let's begin by examining the first major obstacle that keeps us from experiencing natural happiness, our addiction to seeking. We're constantly seeking something, better circumstances, better feelings, better experiences. The seeking has become so habitual that we don't even notice we're doing it. It's like background noise that's been playing so long, we've forgotten it's there. But what drives this constant seeking? At its root, it's the belief that something is missing, that we're somehow incomplete as we are. This belief creates a perpetual state of wanting, of reaching for the next thing that we think will finally make us whole. Take a moment right now to notice if there's anything you're seeking. Maybe it's approval from others, maybe it's a sense of security, maybe it's excitement or peace or love. Whatever it is, just notice the seeking itself. Feel what it's like to be in that state of wanting, of reaching, of believing that something needs to be different for you to be okay. This seeking isn't wrong. It's simply misguided. It's like searching your entire house for your glasses when they're sitting right on top of your head. The very act of seeking prevents you from seeing what's already here. Remember, this isn't about giving up on growth or improvement. It's about understanding that real growth comes not from constant seeking, but from clear seeing. When we stop chasing happiness as if it were something to be caught, we create the space to notice it as something that's already present. Let's talk about something that might make you uncomfortable at first. The idea that your unhappiness isn't coming from what's missing in your life, but from your resistance to what's already here. This resistance shows up in countless ways, but perhaps most powerfully in our constant mental commentary about how things should be different. You know, that voice in your head that's always comparing, judging, wishing things were different. That voice isn't protecting you or helping you. It's actually the source of your suffering. It's the voice that says you'll be happy when you lose 10 pounds, when you get that promotion, when you find the right relationship, when you move to a better place. But here's the truth the voice doesn't want you to know. Those things might bring temporary pleasure, but they won't bring lasting happiness. Think about your own experience. How many times have you achieved something you thought would make you happy, only to find yourself quickly adjusting to the new normal and starting to want something else? This isn't because you're greedy or ungrateful. It's because you're looking for something permanent in things that are inherently temporary. The mind is like a hungry ghost, always wanting more, never satisfied. And we've been taught to feed this ghost, to keep giving it more goals, more achievements, more possessions. But no matter how much we feed it, it's never enough. Why? Because we're feeding the wrong thing. Let me share something with you that might shift your entire perspective on happiness. Have you ever noticed that your happiest moments often come when you're not thinking about yourself at all? When you're completely absorbed in helping someone else, or lost in creating something, or simply enjoying the beauty of a moment without trying to capture it or make it last? These moments of self-forgetting are actually moments of pure happiness. Not because something amazing is happening, but because you've temporarily stepped out of the endless loop of seeking and wanting. You've accidentally stumbled into the present moment where happiness naturally resides. But we've been conditioned to distrust these simple moments. We've been taught that happiness needs to be more complicated, more dramatic, more Instagram-worthy. And so we overlook the quiet joy of ordinary moments while chasing after extraordinary experiences. The irony is that even when we have these extraordinary experiences, we often miss them because we're too busy trying to document them, share them, or make them last longer. We're so afraid of losing happiness that we never fully allow ourselves to experience it in the first place. This fear of losing happiness is another major obstacle we need to address. We hold on to pleasant experiences so tightly that we squeeze the life out of them. We try to control everything in our environment to maintain a certain feeling, not realizing that this very control is what's preventing us from experiencing genuine happiness. Real happiness isn't fragile. It doesn't need to be protected or maintained. It's more like the sky. Clouds may come and go, but the sky itself remains unchanged. Your natural state of happiness is like that sky, always present, regardless of what's passing through it. But we become so fixated on the clouds, our thoughts, emotions, and circumstances, that we've forgotten about the sky altogether. We chase pleasant experiences and run from unpleasant ones, not realizing that true happiness isn't dependent on either. This brings us to another crucial understanding. Happiness isn't about feeling good all the time. That's another myth that keeps us stuck in the seeking trap. Real happiness is bigger than feeling good. It's the capacity to be with whatever is present, pleasant or unpleasant, without needing it to be different. Think about that for a moment. What if happiness isn't about having positive experiences, but about being able to embrace all experiences? What if it's not about feeling good all the time, but about being at peace with whatever you're feeling? This is where true freedom lies. When you no longer need life to be different to be happy, you discover a happiness that doesn't come and go with circumstances. You find what you've been searching for all along, not in some future achievement or acquisition, but in your own capacity to be fully present with life as it is. But this isn't just philosophy. It's practical wisdom that can transform your daily life. Start noticing how much of your unhappiness comes from resistance to what is. Notice how often you're arguing with reality, wishing things were different, wanting more or better or different. And then just for a moment, experiment with letting go of that resistance. What happens when you fully accept this moment exactly as it is? What happens when you stop trying to make it better or different or more? What happens when you stop seeking happiness and simply allow yourself to notice it? This doesn't mean you become passive or stop taking action in your life. Instead, your actions come from a different place, not from lack or wanting or seeking, but from wholeness, from creativity, from joy. You still pursue goals and create things and build relationships, but you do it from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. The shift we're talking about is subtle but profound. It's the difference between chasing after happiness and allowing happiness to emerge naturally. It's the difference between trying to get somewhere and realizing you're already here. It's the difference between seeking and finding. This shift doesn't happen all at once, and it doesn't happen through force or effort. It happens through understanding, through seeing clearly, through letting go of what doesn't serve you. It happens when you stop trying so hard to be happy and simply allow yourself to be. Remember those moments when happiness caught you by surprise, when you weren't looking for it, weren't trying to create it, weren't even thinking about it? That's not coincidence. That's a glimpse of your natural state revealed when you temporarily stop seeking. What if you could live more and more from that place? What if instead of constantly reaching for happiness, you could learn to rest in the happiness that's already here? What if instead of trying to acquire or achieve or become something, you could discover the completeness that's already present? This isn't about denying your desires or suppressing your goals. It's about understanding that those desires and goals don't need to be fulfilled for you to be happy. They can add richness and variety to your life, but they're not the source of your happiness. The source of happiness is closer than your next breath, more immediate than your next thought. It's in the simple fact of your existence, in the miracle of awareness itself. It's in your capacity to experience this moment, whatever it contains. But we miss this because we're always looking elsewhere. We're like fish swimming in the ocean, searching for water. The happiness we seek is not just close. It's what we are. It's our natural state, covered up by layers of seeking, wanting, and believing that we need something more to be complete. This understanding has the power to transform every aspect of your life. When you no longer need circumstances to be different to be happy, you become truly free. When you no longer need to acquire or achieve something to feel complete, you discover a contentment that's unshakable. This is what we mean when we say you'll only find happiness when you stop searching for it. The searching itself is what creates the illusion that happiness is elsewhere. The seeking itself is what convinces you that you don't already have what you're looking for. Take a moment right now to check this for yourself. Before you go seeking happiness in the next experience, the next achievement, the next relationship, pause and notice what's already here. Notice the simple fact of being aware. Notice the peace that's present when you stop trying to make this moment different. There's something profound that happens when we truly understand that happiness isn't a destination. The entire way we move through life begins to shift. Those of you who have been frantically paddling upstream, exhausting yourselves in the pursuit of happiness, what if you could simply turn your boat around and flow with the current of life? You see, we've created this elaborate maze in our minds, filled with conditions and requirements for happiness. I'll be happy when I have more money. I'll be happy when I find the right person. I'll be happy when I achieve my goals. But these conditions are like invisible prison bars, keeping us trapped in a state of perpetual wanting. Every time you tell yourself you'll be happy when something happens, you're telling yourself that you can't be happy now. You're creating a gap between where you are and where you think you need to be to experience happiness. And in that gap lives all your stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. What if happiness isn't about getting somewhere? What if it's about being fully where you are? This isn't just positive thinking or wishful philosophy. It's a radical shift in how we relate to our own experience. Look at nature for a moment. Does a tree strain to be more tree-like? Does a flower anxiously compare itself to other flowers? Does a mountain worry about whether it's tall enough? No. They simply are what they are, fully and completely. Their natural state is one of being, not becoming. We've lost touch with this natural state of being. We're constantly in a state of becoming better. becoming more successful, becoming happier. But in this endless becoming, we miss the profound truth that we already are what we're seeking to be. Think about a time when you were completely absorbed in doing something you love. Maybe you were creating art, playing music, working in your garden, or helping someone in need. In those moments, were you trying to be happy? Were you thinking about whether you were happy enough? No. You were simply being, and in that being, happiness was naturally present. This is the great paradox. The more we chase happiness, the more it eludes us. The more we try to grab hold of it, the more slippery it becomes. But when we stop chasing, when we stop trying to make happiness happen, it reveals itself as our natural state. Let me share something that might help you understand this more deeply. Have you ever noticed that when you're truly happy, you're not thinking about being happy? You're not analyzing your happiness or trying to make it last longer. You're simply experiencing life directly without the filter of wanting or seeking or trying to be happy. This direct experience of life is what we've lost touch with. We've become so caught up in our thoughts about happiness that we've lost contact with the simple, direct experience of being alive. We're like someone so busy taking pictures of a sunset that they never actually see it. But this direct experience is always available to us. It's not something we need to create or achieve. It's something we need to notice. It's like the space in which all our experiences happen. Just as every room has space, every moment of your life has this natural happiness as its background. The problem isn't that this happiness is absent, it's that we're not looking in the right place. We're looking for it in experiences, achievements, and acquisitions when it's actually in the awareness that's aware of all these things. We're looking for it in the content of our lives when it's actually in the context in which all content appears. This is why meditation and mindfulness practices can be so helpful. Not because they create happiness, but because they help us notice the happiness that's already here. They help us step out of our constant doing and into simple being. They help us see that what we're looking for is what's looking. But you don't need to sit in meditation to experience this truth. You can notice it right now in this moment. What's aware of reading these words? What's aware of your thoughts about these words? What's aware of your feelings about these ideas? That awareness itself. That's what we're pointing to. That's where happiness lives. This awareness is always present, always peaceful, always complete. It doesn't need anything to be different to be what it is. It's like the screen on which all the movies of your life play. The screen itself remains unchanged, regardless of whether the movie is happy or sad, exciting or boring. When you begin to recognize this truth, something remarkable happens. You stop needing life to be different to be happy. You stop needing to achieve more, acquire more, or become more. You discover a happiness that isn't dependent on conditions, a happiness that's inherent in your very nature. This doesn't mean you stop having goals or desires. It doesn't mean you become passive or indifferent. Instead, your goals and desires arise from a place of fullness rather than lack. You pursue things not because you need them to be happy, but because pursuing them is a natural expression of the happiness that you already are. Think about how this might change your life. How would you move through your days if you didn't need anything to be different to be happy? How would you relate to others if you weren't seeking happiness through them? How would you pursue your goals if you weren't depending on their achievement for your well-being? This is where true freedom lies. When you no longer need circumstances to be different to be happy, you become truly free. When you no longer need to acquire or achieve something to feel complete, you discover a contentment that's unshakable. But this understanding needs to be more than intellectual. It needs to sink into your bones to become lived experience rather than mere knowledge. This happens through direct recognition, through seeing clearly, through letting go of what doesn't serve you. Start noticing the moments when you're automatically seeking happiness. Notice how this seeking creates tension, creates a sense of lack, creates suffering. And then, just for a moment, let go of seeking. Let go of trying to make this moment different. Let go of trying to be happy. In that letting go, you might discover something remarkable. The happiness you've been seeking has been here all along, like the sun behind the clouds. The clouds of seeking, wanting, and trying to be happy have been obscuring your natural state of peace and content. This isn't about giving up on life or becoming complacent. It's about living from a different place, a place of fullness rather than lack, of peace rather than seeking, of being rather than becoming. It's about recognizing that the happiness you seek isn't in some future moment. It's in the awareness that's aware of this moment right now. When you really get this, everything changes. The pressure lifts, the struggle ceases, the endless seeking falls away. You discover that what you've been looking for has been here all along, waiting patiently for you to notice it. This is the great revelation. That happiness isn't something to be achieved, but something to be recognized. It's not something to be created, but something to be uncovered. It's not something to be found, but something to be remembered. The moment you truly understand that happiness isn't something to achieve, but something to notice, your entire relationship with life begins to shift. Every experience becomes an opportunity to discover the happiness that's already present, rather than a stepping stone to some future state of happiness. Let's talk about something that might challenge everything you've been taught about happiness. We've been conditioned to believe that happiness comes from getting what we want. But what if the real secret to happiness is wanting what we already have? This isn't about settling or giving up on your dreams. It's about understanding that your dreams and goals can add richness to your life without being the source of your happiness. It's about recognizing that every moment contains within it the seed of happiness, if only we have eyes to see it. Think about the simple act of breathing. Right now, you're breathing without any effort, without any thought. This miracle is happening automatically, sustaining your life moment by moment. Yet, how often do you pause to appreciate this? How often do you notice the simple joy of being alive? We've become so focused on extraordinary experiences that we've lost touch with the extraordinary nature of ordinary experiences. We're waiting for something amazing to happen while missing the amazingness of what's already happening. Your heart is beating right now, pumping life through your body. Your eyes are reading these words, translating shapes into meaning. Your mind is processing these ideas, creating new connections, opening to new possibilities. These aren't just biological processes. They're miracles happening in plain sight. But we miss these miracles because we're always looking for something else, something more, something better. We've become like people standing in an abundant garden, complaining that there are no flowers while surrounded by blooms. This blindness to present happiness comes from our addiction to comparison. We're constantly comparing our lives to others, our present to our past, our reality to our expectations. And in these comparisons, we create suffering. We turn the natural joy of being alive into a problem to be solved. Let me share something that might shift your perspective on this. Have you ever noticed that when you're truly enjoying something, you're not comparing it to anything else? When you're absorbed in a beautiful moment, you're not thinking about whether it's better or worse than other moments. You're simply experiencing it fully. This full experience, this direct contact with life, is where natural happiness lies. It's not in the evaluation of experience, but in the experience itself. It's not in the thinking about life, but in the living of it. Consider your happiest memories. Were you analyzing your happiness in those moments? Were you trying to make them better or different? No. You were simply being fully present to what was happening. The happiness was in the presence itself, not in achieving something or getting somewhere. This is the key that unlocks everything we've been talking about. Happiness isn't something that needs to be created or achieved. It's what remains when we stop trying to make this moment different than it is. It's what emerges naturally when we step out of our constant mental commentary about life and into direct. But this isn't just philosophy. It's practical wisdom that can transform your daily life. Start noticing how much of your unhappiness comes from resistance to what is. Notice how often you're arguing with reality, wishing things were different, wanting more or better or different. The mind will tell you that this resistance is necessary, that without it you'll become complacent or lose your motivation. But this is another illusion. True motivation doesn't come from dissatisfaction with what is. It comes from inspiration about what. When you stop resisting what is, you don't become passive. You become more powerful. When you accept reality exactly as it is, you're in a much better position to change it if change is needed. Acceptance isn't weakness. Think about trying to build a house. Would you start by arguing with the ground beneath your feet? Would you waste energy wishing the land was different? No. You'd accept the land exactly as it is and work with it to create something new. This is how we need to approach life. Your life, exactly as it is right now, is the ground on which you stand. When you stop arguing with it, when you stop wishing it were different, you free up enormous amounts of energy. Energy that can be used for creation rather than resistance. Energy that can be used for growth rather than complaint. This doesn't mean you ignore problems or pretend everything is perfect. It means you stop adding the extra layer of suffering that comes from resistance. You deal with what is, directly and honestly, without the additional burden of wishing it were different. When you really get this, something profound happens. The constant background noise of seeking and searching begins to quiet down. The endless reaching for something more begins to settle. You start to discover a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances being different than they are. This peace isn't something you create. It's what's revealed when you stop creating conflict with what is. It's like the blue sky that's always present behind the clouds of your thinking mind. The clouds of wanting, seeking, and resisting may come and go, but the sky of your natural happiness remains unchanged. But this understanding needs to be more than intellectual. It needs to become lived experience. Start noticing the moments when you're automatically seeking happiness elsewhere. Notice how this seeking creates tension, creates a sense of lack, and then, just for a moment, let go of seeking. Let go of trying to make this moment different. Let go of trying to be happy. In that letting go, you might discover something remarkable. The happiness you've been seeking has been here all along. It's in the simple fact of being aware. It's in the natural peace that's present when you stop trying to make things different than they are. This discovery can transform every aspect of your life. Your relationships become more authentic because you're no longer seeking happiness through others. Your work becomes more effective because you're no longer dependent on outcomes for your well-being. Your creativity flows more freely because you're no longer trying to prove anything or get anywhere. Even challenging emotions become easier to handle when you understand this truth. When you're no longer seeking happiness, you can allow all emotions to move through you without resistance. Sadness, anger, fear, they can all be experienced fully without threatening your fundamental well-being. This is true emotional freedom, not the freedom to feel only positive emotions, but the freedom to feel everything fully without losing touch with your natural happiness. It's like being the sky that allows all weather to pass through it without losing its fundamental nature. Think about how this understanding might change your daily life. How would you move through your day if you weren't constantly seeking happiness? How would you relate to others if you weren't trying to get anything from them? How would you approach your work if you weren't depending on it for your well-being? The shift we're talking about is subtle but profound. It's the difference between living from emptiness and living from fullness, between seeking and finding, between becoming and being, between searching for happiness and allowing it to reveal itself as what you already are.